Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding literacy teacher educator on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. And this is the Get Literate podcast, a podcast where we explore the power of reading and writing to cultivate a life we love. Each week, I offer a bit of bibliotherapy and share 3 books you need to know about on a bookish theme to fuel our reading hearts and help us grow through what we go through. But that's not all. I also invite you to extend those bookish themes into your own life through notebooking, lifelong learning, and creativity to experience the life-changing magic of reading in our lives. And the best part? Each episode is only 20 minutes or less, so you can spend less time listening and more time reading. Now, on to today's episode. Hey everyone, Stephanie here, welcoming you back to episode 11 of the Get Literate podcast. I'm here today to share 3 books that bend time and our hearts. Now, not too long ago on my blog, A Lit Life, you can find it at alitlife.com, I wrote about a topic that was fascinating me at the time and still is. The idea of an alternate universe. Stay with me. I stumbled upon this idea from Melissa Urban, who I greatly admire as the founder of Whole30. She was talking about the timeline theory that at the time was a trend on TikTok. And her impression and her understanding of that theory literally blew my mind. Here is what she wrote. The timeline theory is based on quantum mechanics and says every time you make a decision, your reality splits. One you said yes to the job. The other you said no. One you went to bed early. The other you watched Netflix. Given the amount of decisions we make every day, this leaves an infinite variety of yous in an infinite number of timelines, all running in parallel. And in some of these timelines, you're living a happier, more fulfilled life than the one you have now. So the theory goes, through meditation and visualization, you can actually jump timelines to shift your reality and become the version of you that already exists somewhere else. End quote. Mind blown, right? I mean, think about it. Each decision we make has consequences for our future, whether they are small or large. And we could end up creating millions of different realities for ourselves based on those small, single decisions we make. I mean, there could be another better, healthy, happier, more rested version of ourselves out there. And these little tiny decisions that we make today can dictate who that person is tomorrow. Mind blown, right? I have been thinking about this ever since. I have been journaling about this ever since and wondering what the alternate universe Stephanie might look like. What does it mean to jump universes into a parallel time and space? How can that even happen? Is that something I believe even could happen? Or do I just enjoy the idea of knowing that the choices I make can actually impact the future version of who I want to become? So, of course, because that's what we do here on the Get Literate podcast, I'm always making connections from my actual life to my reading life and from my reading life to my actual life. And so I wanted to explore this idea of bending time in the books that I was reading. And so that's what I am here to share with you today. 3 books that not only bend time, but they bend our hearts, right? When you think about what if we could go back in time? What if we could change our future self? What if we could do whatever we wanted with how the world works in this alternate universe? It gets you thinking, and you think and you reflect and you wonder and you what if and you do all the feels. right? You have all the feels because you can't help but experience that bent time with a character that makes you think really carefully of what you would do if you were in that situation. So the three books I'm going to share with you today all have some sort of aspect where the author bends time and talks about some sort of alternate universe, but they do it in three different ways. The first book I'm going to share is about bending time to give ourselves second chances. The second book I'm going to share is about bending time to imagine what an alternate future for yourself might look like. And the third book is bending time to better understand someone or something else that you might not have the whole story on, and how that might impact how you think about your own future. I've also got a little bonus book thrown in because I couldn't not mention this last book at the end. Okay, so let's dive in to what those three books are. The first book I want to share with you is the book that bends time in order to get a second chance. Now, this book is centered around Chloe, and Chloe is probably what we might call a workaholic. She is completely devoted to her job, and that devotion has come at a cost. She doesn't do the things she used to do. She doesn't see the people she used to see. And the biggest cost that she believes is that she's not spending nearly enough time with her mom, and she's missing her. So she finally makes the decision to make the time and find the time and schedules a visit home. But unfortunately, just hours before she arrives home, her mother passes away. Chloe doesn't have time to say goodbye. She doesn't have time to process, and all she can feel is grief and regret, right? I know that's not a really great way to start out a book, but it does hook you in immediately to what's to come. As she goes home for the funeral, she wakes up to, amazingly, finding her mother alive and well. It's like she's literally been transported back in time a couple of months. Everything's back the same. She came home for the visit she wanted to come home for, and her mother was there and her brother was there, and everything was normal. She's getting the second chance she wished she had to spend just 3 more months with her mom. And that's exactly what she does. She's very confused and very perplexed, but embraces it. This is a second chance, and she lives it up the best she can, spending time with her mom, connecting with her mom, learning from her mom, and just trying to do all the things and be all the things that she wished she did when she didn't think she had the time, but when she actually had the time, but didn't make the most of it. And so this is a tearjerker of a book. As I mentioned, in a book like this, it is almost impossible to not reflect on what you would do in the situation, right? Who do you wish you had 3 more months with? What decisions do you wish you made about less work and more time at home before it's too late? You can't not think about these kinds of big life questions when you're reading 3 More Months by Sarah Ekver. It's an amazing book that I highly, of course, recommend being the first book on this episode. So book 2 is a book that bends time to give us a glimpse into what our alternate universe future might look like if we were to have the chance to imagine it. And this book is A Day Like This by Kelly McNeil. This is a book about Annie, and Annie has it all. She has a husband she loves, a house in the country that is just perfect, and a little girl who is just filling her life to the brim with love. On the way to the pediatrician, unfortunately, they get into a car accident. And when Annie wakes up, everything's different. It's like 5 years have gone. She wakes up alone, single, and without a daughter. It's like they never existed. The marriage is coming to an end. She now lives in Manhattan as a successful artist instead of a stay-at-home mom in her upstate New York farmhouse. Her sister that she was once close to, oh, I'm sorry, her sister that she was once estranged from, she's now suddenly close to, and the dog that she just lost is alive and well. She's very confused, right? And unlike 3 More Months, Annie attempts to go back and forth. She knows she's in a different place, but she remembers her old life as if it were real, and she is searching for answers. And more importantly, she is searching for her daughter, Hannah. She knows in her heart and in her gut that she exists, and she is not going to give up until she figures out what is going on. And that's the beauty of this book. Not only do we get to experience what our alternate universe self might have looked like had we made different choices, but we also see a character try to bring those two different alternate realities together to figure out what's going on. And that gave it a really interesting, suspenseful twist that I didn't think I needed, but I definitely did. So that's A Day Like This by Kelly McNeil. If you want a book where you imagine what your future self might have looked like had you made different decisions, married someone else, went to school, took another job, had kids, didn't have kids, moved across the country, didn't move, this book plays out what those opportunities might look like had you made different choices. And because it goes back and forth to those different realities, it is just completely suspenseful. So A Day Like This by Kelly McNeil. Now, the final book I want to bring to you is a book that bends time, but in a different way. In this book, it bends time so that a character can get to know another character and understand what life may have been like from a different perspective. It's a book that I've read very recently, read it as part of my Get Literate book club, and instantly loved it. This book is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. Now, admittedly, I went into reading One Italian Summer because I just wanted to get away. I wanted my reading to take me somewhere else. I wanted to go to the Amalfi Coast and just enjoy all of the sights and sounds and tastes of Italy. What I didn't expect was to get a book that bent time in this way. So this book is all about Katie, and Katie's mother passes away and she's left reeling. She doesn't know what to do. Carol was Katie's mom, but she was her best friend. She had all the answers. She knew what to do, what to say, how to act, and made sure that Katie felt comfortable with whatever step was coming next into her life. And now she's gone and she doesn't know what to do. And the worst thing is that soon after her passing, the Italian trip that they were supposed to make together so that Katie could learn more about Carol's magical time spent in that location, it's coming up. And now Katie, filled with deep, deep grief, decides to go in an attempt to get away, to figure out what comes next to her, and maybe, just maybe, feel like she's closer to her mom after all. But what happens? Well, when she gets there, she does feel a little more alive. The food is wonderful. The air is wonderful. She knows that her mother has been in these exact locations that she has, and she feels herself coming back to life a bit. But then her mother appears in the flesh, in the hotel, looking beautiful at about 30 years old. Somehow she has bent time and stepped back into the past to see the earlier version of her mother before she was the mom and the homemaker and the family matriarch. And what she finds out is very surprising, that perhaps the view that she's had of her mother for her entire life isn't 100% correct. Maybe she sees not who she thought her mother was, but who she was and how she was becoming. So this book was a completely different way to bend time because, yes, she got more time with her mother in an unexpected way, but it wasn't just to spend time with her mother at the age she was when she passed. She got to know her mother's younger self. And in getting to know her mother's younger self, she's getting to know herself and what she wants and the kinds of decisions she wants to make and how she wants to be known when she has left the earth as well. So it's this beautiful mix of bending time and bending relationships so that the future might take a different course. It fascinated me from the very first page to the very last. Now, those are my 3 top picks for you. We've got 3 more months, A Day Like This, and One Italian Summer. But I can't leave the episode without mentioning one more. Because I was so enamored with Rebecca Searle's One Italian Summer, I instantly went to pick up her other title called In 5 Years. And it's on my TBR, hopefully to finish before the summer ends. And this is about Danny. Danny is a very sensical person, methodical. She plans everything. She does everything right, just as she is supposed to. She gets the right job. She gets engaged to her fiance, and everything's working well until she woke up one morning, 5 years into the future. And that future was completely different than she imagined. She woke up in a different apartment with a different job and even with a different fiance sleeping next to her. Now, she'll only spend 1 hour 5 years into the future before she wakes up again back into her own home. But that 1 hour changes everything. Oh, I can't wait to get my hands on this book. So that is kind of an honorable mention book that's already on my TBR that I know I am going to enjoy. So those are the books I have for you, and you know what comes next. How do we bring this bookish theme to life? Well, we can't bend time ourselves, or can we? Or at least I don't know how to bend time ourselves, but we can think about it. We can think about what we would do if we could bend time, and we could journal about it. So I'd love for you to think for a second. If you could bend time, like the authors of these books bent time, what would you do? Would you have a do-over to make up for something that you wished you made a different decision about? Would you have time to catch up on things that you lost with a loved one? Would you imagine an alternate future for yourself? Would you alter time so that you could peek in on someone else's life, like Scrooge, and figure out what makes them tick and why they act the way they do and why they are in your life and how you can be better? There are so many different ways to bend time based on what we need, what we think we need, what we wish for. That's what I'm fascinated by. And that's what I'd love you to think about. How would you bend time if you could? And then ask yourself, what does that say about what you need next? If you would bend time to spend more time with a loved one, is that showing you that perhaps you need some sort of closure and a way to celebrate someone who has passed and a better plan to connect with those that you still have time for? Or perhaps it's showing that maybe, just maybe, you want a different future for yourself. Maybe it's a new job. Maybe it's a new move. Maybe it's a new connection or relationship in your life. What could you do? What's one little thing you could do to make sure that becomes a reality? So thinking about how you might bend time can give us little clues about what we might actually want. And since we can't quite bend time yet, or at least I haven't figured out how, what we can do is take those lessons forward to do better with the time we actually have, so that we can act on what we're learning in this self-reflection of reading about bent time and reflecting with our bookish hearts about what we would do. We could then do one small thing that, as I reminded you in the beginning, has the potential to bring us lots of different alternate realities. You might be surprised at what you come up with, and we might be surprised at some of those small shifts we can make can really bring us to that bigger, better, more happier version of ourselves. So that's it for me today. I would love, love, love to know what titles you have that bend time and hearts. What books can you send my way that I can devour that plays with time in a way like I've shared today, or in a completely different way, so that I can learn from those perspectives too? I want to keep a laundry list of books that bend time and heart so that I can return to them, because I really feel like they are nuggets of inspiration that we might not be able to time hop very easily, but it reminds us that if we are feeling some kind of tug or wanting or regret in the ability to do that, that maybe there's still something left we can do with the time that we actually have. So send me those books. Head to elitlife.com and comment on the show notes, or find me on your favorite social media platform at Affinito Lit. I will eagerly await those titles to add them to my TBR. Thanks for listening and happy reading. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at www.alitlife.com. You'll also find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life there, like book lists, notebooking ideas, personalized book recommendations, and an invitation to join my Get Literate members community. Each month, we take a deep dive into one bookish theme and work to bring it to life in our own lives. You'll get a monthly bibliotherapy book calendar with a book recommendation for every day of the month, bonus episodes, live book club sessions, and much more. Learn more at www.getliterate.co.